You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona. With me always are my great friends,
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And AK Mike in Texas.
and man, it is a great day. Mike is in the middle of a thunderstorm. Jay's been out in the field, and I'm in a beautiful, hot, sunny Arizona. I just got out of the pool. So,
woohoo! You just got out of the pool.
I know, right? We
That's
got some
tough.
great things to talk about today, but before we get started, how about a word from our sponsors?
"3D Aeroventures, adding fun to the RC hobby, one layer at a time."
Feeling weak and powerless? Sounds to me like you need A-Power batteries. When someone needs the best, they always choose the A-Team. A-Power batteries. Get on the web and get yours today.
Well, welcome back to the Park Flyer Podcast. We are going to talk a little bit about a safety issue that I want to bring up because somebody, I won't mention any names because they're dealing.
They're not in the room.
No, they're dealing with an issue, but no, they didn't lose any digits. But this is kind of a good safety topic, and I just need everybody to understand that flying airplanes is inherently dangerous, and there are mechanical failures. Always test your equipment before you go out. In this particular case, and if you're on the AMA Facebook page and that kind of thing, you've probably seen the story, but a guy had a very large 4-meter glider. He got it airborne, lost a signal. The airplane came out of the sky, went into a spiral, and basically hit someone's vehicle.
Oh, wow.
And did a lot of damage. Not substantial damage that he couldn't drive it home, but he had destroyed his plane, and it did mess up the vehicle pretty well. And he mentioned in his post that he's not sure what to do because both insurance, his homeowner's insurance and the AMA insurance, both declined him.
What?
I don't mean to laugh at that, but I kind of chuckle because, once again, although the AMA insurance, when people get it, they're like, oh, boy, they'll cover me for everything. And that's not exactly the way it works.
No, it's not. And so if you're an AMA member and you have a membership and you're at a sanctioned field, you are covered by the AMA's liability policy. And liability means that after all of your exhausted efforts in your homeowner's policy, because that's usually
That's
what
right.
covers us, once you get to the point where there's more than your homeowners will pay out,
Then
to
they'll
a
kick in
certain
the
amount,
couple of the
then
chump
the
change for
AMA
you.
says we can kick in and cover whatever the remaining amount is.
Exactly.
So because his homeowner's insurance denied him, that's why the AMA denied him.
Correct, because the AMA is not going to pay the bill just because he needs to get his homeowner's insurance to do it. So, having said all that, I know companies like, I won't mention them, but there's a couple of large, farming type insurance companies.
You and those tractors, man. Come on.
They cover the states of America.
That's right. They cover the
The
states.
states of America.
Anyway, whatever your insurance company that has your homeowner's policy, make sure that you just have an understanding that almost every insurance policy out there, the homeowner's policy is going to say we don't want to cover it. I mean, I had a damage on my home that was done by a thunderstorm and a leaky roof, which had nothing to do with me, right? It doesn't rain in Arizona very much. I had a new roof put on. There was a metal piece underneath where they had foamed it, and the metal
Flashing.
piece flashing, correct? And it actually buckled, kind of heated up and expanded, cracked the foam, and the water, it rained the next day. The water went in and blew out the whole ceiling on the
All
porch
of what they had repaired, yeah.
Yeah, and so it pretty much leveled, all the stuff up there. And when I called them, the first thing they said was, well, if it's not very expensive, I would pay for it out of my pocket, because if we pay for it, your homeowner's insurance is going to go up. But, if it's enough damage that you can't afford it, then we'll go ahead and put a claim in, and then they'll come out and they'll do the assessment and the adjustment, and then, we'll take whatever it is. But you can guarantee that we're going to charge you more to get our money back. So just be aware of that. I think a lot of people, it was a very good, lesson. I saw a lot of comments. In my particular case, I did the work myself, and I just paid for the materials. It was very inexpensive in my particular case. But in this guy's particular case, it's very expensive to fix a vehicle. And, he's looking for some help. And there were a lot of people that were telling him how to go about and approach his homeowner's insurance.
Right. And that's the other thing. When you kind of say, yeah, I got hit by a plane, blah, 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 blah. They go, oh, plane. Oh, well, that nothing to do with our homeowner insurance. We cover rain, bats, frogs, planes. Oh, yeah, no, you'd have to get plane insurance. You were flying the plane, right? Yeah. But it was a model plane. Semantics, real plane, model plane. So, yeah, usually you have to go back and you're going to have to battle with them just a little bit, and then we'll kind of go, oh, okay, we'll go ahead and we'll come through. So,
is that what's going to happen here, Mike?
In this particular case, he called the AMA. He talked to some people. He called his insurance company. He talked to some people, and both just basically said, hey, public forum's not the place to talk about this. So before you do any more damage to what you probably could go get, let's just, stop the social media run, and then we'll deal with it behind the scenes.
The other thing is, too, so here's the tricky part with this stuff, between your home and your auto insurance. So it's just like a kid threw a baseball through somebody's car window. Mm-hmm. Depending on how they want to do it, they may say, well, that's covered by your insurance, your auto insurance, and then depending on what, he threw a baseball bat through your car window, that might be covered under your homeowner's insurance. So it all depends on what the device was that damaged the thing. Now if he's trying to claim, I don't know if he's trying to, if that 4-meter glider might have been really expensive, so he might be trying to recoup some losses on it as well, and that might have some stuff to do with it, because he might have said, well, that glider is worth $4,000, and they may go, well, it's worth $4,000, but really it isn't covered by homeowners insurance because of, it's a model or it's a hobby, and we only cover up to $1,000 for hobbies. Type of thing, that got damaged because of whatever. So we'll only cover $1,000, and the guy's windshield and body work is $8,000. So that's why they're like, whoop, well, we're get up to this amount, but we're not going to cover anything else, and therefore the according to the AMA, they're looking at it going, well, geez, you didn't even touch your homeowner's insurance, so we're not going to cover it because you have to be over this threshold for us. So yeah.
Well, it was a good topic, because I was looking around, and I do subscribe to the AMA site. I kind of peruse it occasionally, and it was a big topic. So I just wanted to kind of double check with our listeners and just say, hey, look, you need to be careful. And then if something like that was to happen, just understand the pathway you have to take to rectify the situation.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully it won't happen, but
Can you back up a little bit?
Sure.
You made a comment about him talking about this stuff on social media. Mm-hmm. I felt like the statements that you said, I don't know if this is what they really said, but the insurance company said was, hey, you got to stop the social media stuff. So basically, if you don't stop talking about it on social media, that's going to make his chances worse? Is that the idea?
No, I thought you were saying
I felt like that was more. Huh?
Was that the AMA? The AMA was saying that.
The AMA just said, because he kind of.
But why would that make it worse? That's what I don't understand.
Because it doesn't help the AMA, dude.
Right.
Oh, it doesn't make. I thought it was talking about for himself.
No.
Making it
No.
worse for
They could care.
himself.
I'm not
That's
going to
why-
say they
that's
could
why I was
care less,
confused.
but it's kind of like you work for AT&T and you coming on and talking about AT&T. AT&T would go, even though what you were saying was absolutely true, they may be like, hey, Mike, maybe you might want to talk about AT&T and that sort of light, or
anytime I talk about AT&T, it has to be cleared. In fact, I'll probably have to get this clear just because I talked about AT&T.
No, but you know what I'm saying, right?
I have the same policy, right? I mean, if I got on social media and mentioned my company, then I would immediately get flagged.
Right.
And if it was any derogatory comments, then I would get a phone.
So it's not that it for this gentleman that him talking about it is going to cause him any woe per se, or like the AMA is not going to pay him. It's just the AMA going, hey buddy, why don't we try to figure out this thing behind the scenes before you start blabbing about it first? And then maybe we need to we'll engage or send another guy to help you out to talk to your insurance agency about this because they're unfamiliar with it.
Well, always in the back of my mind though, the fact that he talked about it on Facebook first is going to make me wonder if that didn't spur people on to listen a little bit better to this guy about what was going on and give him a little more assistance on what he needed.
So I don't disagree with that, right? But the initial post was a little more. He posted it in a little bit of a heated moment, right? Because he
was upset.
He basically was upset.
Yeah.
And I read the post, and he basically said, "Look, I'm going to let everybody know that this just happened to me, and both insurance companies denied me." And that's what are we paying for then?
That seems factual.
And it was factual, and
yeah.
Everybody mentioned the fact that, hey, look, you're rattling the AMA's cage, but they're secondary, not. You can't go. Oh, they're not.
And an opportunity for them to clear that up too, right?
And they
to
did.
make that clear, right? Which is again, I'm still supporting what this guy did. Maybe he didn't read. I didn't get to read the post. I don't know what you're talking about, but just from a standpoint of taking action. If people are going to deny you, and insurance companies are notorious for denying people out of the gate, and only people who chase them for days and years and months or whatever, or the people who end up getting something.
Attorneys. They hire attorneys.
Yeah.
And,
right.
So,
and that just.
Well, I'll tell you a real quick little side story. So I have a good friend, Howard, lives out in Nashville, right? And unfortunately, like his house has been flooded like 2 or 3 times. He's like right on the bend of this river. You don't even see the river. You would never even know he's near the river, but he's in this exact location that once things happen, heavy rains or flood, all of a sudden he looks out on his little field backyard, and all of a sudden he has this little itty bitty creek back there, and all of a sudden that creek swells up, and then you just start seeing the water come closer and closer to his house, and then he has like a 2-story house. Yeah, he has a 2-story house that's kind of built into a hill, and that basement part gets filled with water up to about shoulder length, and it just decimates his house. So the first time he went through it, he sat down. The good part is he's a stay at home dad type of thing. His wife has a engineering company. So
kept man, that's good.
So he's almost kept. He's busy. So anyway, he had a lot of time to sit down and read his policy, and he went through and he read the policy, and then he sat down and read through it again. And like a week after, or like within 3 days of the flood, the insurance guys came to the neighborhood and was writing checks to everybody. Here's $10,000. Here's $5,000. Here's $15,000 for you. And everybody's like, whoa, I got this money to help me with my house. And then they realized to replace the roof was going to cost them $25,000, right? Or to whatever damage, that barely even paid for the sheetrock type of thing.
Right.
And so my buddy
Howard, on the other hand, was different when they got to his house.
They said, "Hey, we'll give you, $8,000 for your house." And he's like, "Yeah, no. I'm currently in the middle of doing inventory of the damages of my home. I will send you a package at a later date. I have until, this happened February or whatever. I have until June 8th to send you my completed inventory. Until then, I will be taking no monetary funds from you folks. Thank you very much for your quick response to see if I needed anything. Sincerely, Howard." Yeah. So
we'll make it $30,000.
Right, and that's what they did. That's what they turned around and said, "Well, here, we know you need money now. How about we give you this?" And he said, please refer to the first letter, da 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 da. I will be sending you a packet soon. And so he sat down and he counted every sock in his house. Yep. He had taken a billion pictures of every little thing and candy wrapper in his house. And he sat down and he organized it all out, all his pictures, every film or video that he ever took around the house, showing things on the walls, pictures, this, that, the other thing, everything. And it took him like 3 months to catalog everything that was damaged in his house, with proof, with references, with time, date stamps, things to prove that it was in his house prior to the flood and all that kind of junk.
Right.
And they were not happy with him.
I imagine.
They were not happy
that
with
bill
him.
came back way over what they were willing to pay.
They had to pay him. They had to pay him, but he was the
right.
only one.
I mean, I'm saying what they were offering that day.
It was dude. It was
so
pittance. It was pittance.
Right. It was just,
which is pretty normal.
Oh yeah,
pretty normal.
Well, they're a business too, right? I don't totally blame them, but they're a business too. I can understand it. But but unfortunately, they got the wrong one because my friend is he read their rule book and turned around and said, well, according to your rules, I'm able to do X, Y, and Z, and I have this much time to do it in, and therefore here's what I'm doing, and here's my bill, and now you have X amount of time. Now that I gave you this detailed report, to pay me, and pay him they did. So they pretty much
they had to.
Yeah, they had to. But
he said, "This is what your policy says. This is what I did. This is what you owe.
And here's all my proof." And they were like, when they were like, "Oh my gosh, there's a subsection C to this, subsection B. Right. Who is this guy?"
Right. Yeah.
So he was so successful at what he did that all the other neighbors that had problems, he said, "Well, I could show you." And I was like, "Dude, obviously you got a thing here. This is something like
making a business out of it.
Make a business or put out a thing where you charge people X amount of dollars and and they can recover a heck of a lot more from these companies."
Well, don't a lot of lawyers do that?
I guess maybe they do. Maybe they do.
Yeah.
But for
he doesn't need to be a lawyer.
Stay at home dad who was able to milk the insurance company. And,
I wouldn't call it milking.
Well,
I'd
not
call
milking,
it getting your
but
just due.
He got what he deserved in the sense.
Right, he got his just due.
Milked them. I would
exactly.
say that he actually got what the replacement cost for the damages it was, which we know when we did a podcast a year or so back with the Hurricane Harvey. Yeah. And we talked to the guys down in Houston there, and one of the guys that we had on the podcast, and he mentioned the same thing, right? He said the house was totaled. The water was all the way to the second story in the second story bedrooms, and they wanted to just give him $40,000 to replace sheetrock. And he's like, "No, you don't understand. This house has got mold behind the facade. We should tear the whole thing down." And they were like, "No, yeah, we ain't doing it." Yeah. And he's stuck. He's like, "What do? I can't move back into the house. It's too much damage." And they won't pay to have all the damage fixed. And unfortunately, and we're kind of off topic here with the houses, but kind of bringing it back around, if this does happen to you, or if you are familiar with your field, just be careful. And then understand that you have the ability to use your homeowner's insurance. It is covered under that. But you may have to either consult an attorney, consult your club. There's somebody on your club, a president or vice president, and you have some other board members. Two of our board members were lawyers, so they're familiar with it. And just be cautious jumping on the worldwide,
Well, it's a tool, but to go out there and like you said, smash everybody and try to get everybody all in uproar. Why don't you, wait? Get your information, and then if nobody's replying to you or whatever, then you go out and embarrass them, or you bring light to it, So
and in Mike's defense, I think Mike is correct that he can use social media to gather information, because social media, and we're gonna throw Scott under the bus here real quick, but he doesn't really like it, and we're not on it all the time either. But what it does do is allow you access to a lot of different people.
Right.
If you're on the AMA site, there's almost 500,000 members that peruse that site. And he did he got, there were thousands of comments of people that go, "Oh, this happened to me," or
Right.
or where he would never have that. If it was Jay and Jay was out, the field or whatever and hit a car, and what does Jay do?
Walk
Jay's
away
like,
because I'm out in the middle of a field. I could care less. No,
but you know what I'm
the
saying,
chances of
right?
me being caught are very low.
I know. I'm just using your name as using you as an example, but I'm just saying that if in this particular case, if you were out at the or
Right.
if it was me or Mike or whatever, you're visiting a site, and you do have something happen like that you would not know, and this is using social media, Mike, to gain access to that many people is a good thing. Coming out with your guns blazing and blaming this is BS because so and so didn't pay, and now I got to go. They just denied me. Okay, well there are other recourses, and yes, you have to it's a typical insurance thing, but he kind of threw his insurance company under the bus and then the AMA under the bus for not paying either, and got a little bit of a correction there, saying, "Wait a second, don't bury the AMA because." You only pay $75 a month for $1 million in coverage. That's actually a really good deal. I mean,
it is, and like I'm not knocking the AMA, but honestly, I would say that the AMA insurance is fantastic for young people or kids coming into the hobby. Really, that's what that insurance is for.
Somebody that doesn't own a home,
right? Because
well, I don't know that would work out that way because they're not 18, so they don't
I'm
have
not
a claim.
talking little kids, but I'm just
so
saying.
then it goes back to the homeowners insurance. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it's a good statement you made, but at the same time, that's money that's not going to be used for that because they're a kid.
Yeah,
so I mean, this is all risk management, right? This is all risk management. That's what we're talking about.
And I don't want to beat a dead horse, so we can move on. But I just wanted to caution people because I saw it this week and I was like, oh, that's a good thing to touch on for 20 minutes. I just figured I was going to breathe through it and mention it. So anyway, let's go ahead and shift gears and talk a little bit about what we did this week. And unfortunately, I had some doctor's appointments and some other stuff, but Jay got to fly again.
I did get to fly.
Yeah, let's
okay, I know you were just trying to end the stuff with the insurance stuff, but I have a good segue, and that is dun dun dun. If I can get this up so I can focus.
Okay, this
little finger talking about things here. I don't know if you can see that, folks.
Yeah, you can barely.
I'll just tell them it's a cut.
It's a
cut. You can't see it. It's a cut.
It is
for those of you that are not watching on our YouTube channel at the Park Flyer Podcast YouTube.
Jay's finger is cut.
Yeah, yes. I can see it. He's milking it.
Yes, I'm trying to milk it. So Mr. Safety over here. So one of the planes that I got to fly this week was a mini Ultra Stick that I'd gotten, and so I basically had gotten 2 gliders, and the guy, the gentleman who I was buying the gliders off, said, "Hey, I got this mini Ultra Stick. It's just." I ripped all the insides out, but I need a good home for it because I just never fly. And I was like, oh well, I think I can give it a good home. So anyway, I brought it home, threw in some servos, threw in the rest of the gear, found a motor for it. The motor wasn't working quite right. So it was, if you know how like when you get your motor, and if you don't plug your you don't plug everything into the speed controller just quite right, you may get it where it's kind of glitching or chugging, it's missing a phase, and so it may chug a little bit, and then you might have to wiggle some wires or figure out if there's a short or something. Well, it was kind of doing that, and I'm just like,
if I'm not mistaken, we talked a little bit about this on the last podcast.
We did.
At the very end, we were talking about what could be the problem.
So what could be the problem?
Reminder.
So one of those things that happened, like after we had talked about that. So I went through, prior to this, but I'd gone through, I whipped out my multimeter, I was checking everything. Everything seemed to be normal. I tried different speed controllers, just all sorts of different things. I'm just like, this is really weird. And then I kind of, the motor was sitting there kind of chugging along, and either I kind of just flicked the propeller and bring, and it started up. And I'm like, whoa, hey, I was able to go ahead with the motor and get it up to full speed, come back down. If I put it on low, it could just sit there and chug. It would just sit there and chug along, no problem. And then if I shut it off and then tried to start it again, it would go juk, 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 juk. So it needed like this little jump start in order to get it going. So once again, I tried a couple of different escapes. I moved the wires and moved them all around.
What?
What's that?
What's an escape?
Speed controller. I moved the speed controller around. So I tried this a couple of different ways. So it still was having the same symptoms, right? So I put a more powerful speed controller on it, just thinking maybe I had the timing wrong or something. And I go to kind of jumpstart it right with my finger, but I'm looking down at my radio. I go to thwack it, and I gave it a good thwack, and it said, "Whoa, here we go," and took off. And the next thing I know, thunk, as the propeller goes flying across the room, sticks in something. And I didn't even have to look down at my finger. I went, God, dog it. I know I just split that thing right down the middle of the nail, or everything else. And so I looked down and I was kind of, I was doing this like, holding it, right? So the blood wouldn't spurt all over. Because I'm on my wife's side of the hobby room, right? So I don't want to split bladders.
Of course you are.
Yeah. So I'm kind of holding my finger.
She's going to make you pay a deductible for that. You know that, right?
So I kind of look down and I'm like, whew. Oh, okay. I don't think I need stitches. So I was like, oh boy, I thought that might have went down because I had a carbon prop on it as well.
Oh wow.
So that joy.
And we all know you and carbon props have a history.
Yeah, we do have a history. So the other thing that I can't believe it's going to hurt here really bad in a minute. Right? Because, the adrenaline's pumping. And I go, I can't believe it, but I just cut my finger that I cut the tip of my finger off when I was with AK Mike up in Alaska with my quadcopter. I cannot believe I just cut that finger. And I look down and I go, whew, it wasn't that finger. Because I was like, it's gonna hurt so bad in just like 30 seconds. And then I saw it was the finger right next to that one.
Finger over.
Yeah, so I was like, whew, okay, it's not going to be that bad. So, yeah, a little CA glue, little Blenderum, and I was okay.
So we're going to start calling you Lefty?
Yeah, could be.
Or
Stubbs.
Too.
Stubbs.
What?
Yeah.
I got all the important fingers right here, right?
That's it.
Oh, my gosh.
This and this.
That's right. I'm good. I can still pinch.
Yeah, he's the pincher, so that's fine.
I'm all right.
That is hilarious.
So anyway, folks, what I'm telling you, what everybody knows, when you're working on a plane and you have power on it, take the prop off. Take the prop off, or take your
But then you
finger
couldn't
off.
have whacked it. How are you going to thwack it if you don't have the prop on?
I could have put on a popsicle.
So what was wrong with the motor?
I still don't know.
Oh, okay.
I still don't know.
He was in the middle of all that when he hurt his
After
finger.
it bit you, did you throw it away? Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
that's what I'm segueing again to my story. I ended up using it for the day I went flying.
Oh.
And you just thwacked it to get it started?
Mm-hmm. This time I kicked it. This time I kicked it.
Did you use this? Yeah, I was going to say, did you use the same figure just to attempt fade?
No.
Or like one of your wood sticks?
I figured I could use my lower leg, or this time cut a femoral
my lower
artery.
leg.
Yeah, I could use my femoral artery to thwack it with.
Now he limps.
Nope, I just kicked it with the heel of my toe, and whoop, that was enough
Pinky
to get
toe is gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I would just
well, we know what to get him for his Christmas. We can get him a chicken stick for Christmas.
Chicken stick. In fact, I got one. It's actually.
I'm just going to get him a barbecue bob.
But who's thinking of that at the time? Not me. So, but I should have been thinking. Should have just took the prop off.
Because he's got one right there.
Yep.
Why would he need a chicken stick?
Yeah. Sorry, I got A#1 chicken stick right here. It works all the time, every time. Waterproof, fuel proof.
What we should get him, Mike, is those little fold up like aluminum things.
Oh yeah, for sure, to put on his finger.
Every finger for him, so he can.
Prior to you can't fly without this, Jay. You have to fly.
Oh my God! I hit myself. Oh, phew.
Get that aluminum, man.
We'll have to name them J Protection gear or something.
Devices, yeah. But all in all, after that and the bleeding stopped and I cleaned up the blood off of my wife's stuff, it was all right. Yeah. But just want to tell my terrible tale to everybody else to learn from my mistake.
And she's like, "Oh, I got a new design for a card."
Yeah, what color is this?
Yeah, exactly.
It kind of
This
changes. Is that one of those
Jay,
color
I need
changing
more of
things?
this color. Can you bring some more of that back wherever
That's
you
right.
got it from?
That's right. It kind
The
of
good
just
news is she can use it for Valentine's Day or she can use it for Halloween. One of the
there you
two.
go.
Right.
Either
Right.
door.
Any Saw-2 birthdays that are coming up or anything?
That's it.
Soggy.
But
So we were able to. I called Jay the other day, or he actually called me and on his way home, and he just sounded tired. I was like, "Dude, what have you been doing?" He's like, "I was out there mowing the field."
Yep.
So he went out and mowed the field because everybody was getting together to
Yep.
go fly.
Yep.
And had I been smart, I would have probably hopped a flight and come down there because you had a whole group of people coming down.
Yeah, that was cool.
yeah. So it was really nice. Our old time friend Jim, who I haven't seen in almost a year and a half, unfortunately. He had a few medical conditions, and finally he was better, and he called me up, and he was like, "Dude, I've got to go flying. I've got to go out to the field either Friday or Saturday. We got to go. I'm going. It's not if I am going." I was like, "Oh, okay, dude. I can make that." Gave Scott a call, and he came on out, and it was really a fantastic time, and it's one of those rare days that going flying, I could just tell from Jim, his spirit was lifted so much from flying that day, and we had so much fun. We didn't put anything in the trash can or in garbage bags, or we didn't have any crazy mishaps. Although we did had some, Three Stooges moments, putting some planes together and doing things in not correct sequences. But hey, it all worked out in the end. Everybody had a good time. The weather held out. Didn't get too windy or hot, so it was a real nice day. We got to catch up, over the period of time that, we hadn't been speaking or getting together. And so, it was really a good time.
It's probably good that you didn't go, Mike, because then you would have been Shemp. And, he just
nobody likes him.
Nobody liked him. Yeah.
I want to be Curly. I always want to be Curly.
So, let's see. I just took, I knew we were going to be working on a couple of Jim's planes just because
he hasn't flown in a while.
Well, he hasn't flown in a while. And one of those things, so that brings me to another topic, which is, since I had Jim's talking radio and I knew that he only had a couple of models on it, and I was pretty sure he wasn't bringing those models out with us, but I figured he was going to bring his older radios that don't talk. And just from my own experience, one of the problems is, he hasn't flown in a year and a half. And even if it's a model you're familiar with, you tend to forget.
Right.
What does this switch do? How did I set this up? I mean, I know it worked when it flew great when I flew it last time, but I don't remember how that was set up or this was set up. You're flicking switches. You're like, what did I have? I know I had dual rate on that. Is this dual rate? Is that not dual rate? So it was one of those processes. And then plus the first plane that we flew that he was trying to get started, he brought out a glue plane that it's called the Dolphin. And it's kind of mid-wing, it's low wing. No, mid-wing, low wing. Having brain fart.
It looked a little bit more like a mid-wing.
Yeah. Well, I'll throw up a picture of it. But anyway, we got out there, and part of the problem was we were going through the controls, and Jim says, "Hey, I'm not getting any left aileron, And we're like, "What?" And he goes, "Look, to the right, it's like almost standing straight up." He goes to the left, barely a couple of millimeters. And we're like, that's weird. Okay, well, maybe it's the servo. So we're swapping the servo leads around. It's still doing the same thing. So I'm like, okay, it's probably the radio. So why don't we go through the radio, look at all the, mixes, see if you have any mixes in there. It could be some expo turned way up. It could be, it could be numerous things of just sub trim, this, that, or the other thing. But we're going to have to go down and go through it just to see. And that, once again, he's trying to, refigure out his radio, trying to figure out, he goes, well, there's a menu here. How do I get to that? So it was just one of those things where we're just trying to figure this stuff out. And the reason I'm talking about this is, as we're all getting older, those of us that are fortunate enough to have newer radios and radios that talk, this problem's kind of alleviated, because I know for me, if I get a model and I'm looking at it and I'm like, what does everything do? I just start moving all the switches. And then the radio starts talking to me, and I go, oh, yeah, that's right. That's what this radio does. Oh, yeah, this has a mix. It has this. Oh, this is how you turn the gyro on or off, because the thing's talking to me as I'm going through the switches. Well, my good friend Pete, back in Alaska, a good friend of Mike and I, one of the things that he did that was super, super smart was he would draw all in the inside of his cockpit, meaning he would mark out where the battery goes. For each, like if he flew with a 2200 and a 2800 or something like that, he would mark the locations of where those batteries go, and he would label it. He would put a little card in the fuselage, that a little library card or whatever, so that you could take it out, and it would just say, hey, he would have little notams on what was going on with the plane. Hey, this is set up for blah blah blah. This has dual rates on this switch, and it was just a reminder, a little memory card, so you could pick it up, look at it, and go, oh, hey, that's what everything's does in your plane. And I was kind of thinking, for anybody else who has this type of a setup, that maybe if you want to put a card in there, go ahead. But now you have phones, you could just talk to your phone and tell yourself and remind yourself everything about your plane, and then you can store it with you, because everybody takes their phone with them. And that way, more than likely, then you have it. Or you can do like my friend Pete, put it on a card, stick it in the plane, and forget about it.
That's smart.
So,
yeah.
But so as it turned out, after, and here's part of the problem or not problem, I guess the hilarity of it all was because we would think that we had fixed it, or we got the problem, and they would put the wing on, they'd screw it back on, and then something wouldn't work. We'd have to take the wing back off and then go back in there and screw with it again.
It's a low wing, by the way. I just looked at
Okay, it's a low wing. Okay. So as it turned out, unbeknownst to us, we didn't know that Jim had a gyro in this plane. And the gyro was messing with everything because we never were initializing it correctly.
Right side up. It was upside down.
It was upside down. And so it's trying to initialize itself, and therefore it's not giving you all the throws and all the stuff because it was upside down, or it was, the wing was off, or, it just was a comedy of errors. So it wasn't per se the plane. It was just us unfamiliar with this. It was an Eagle Tree gyro.
Sure.
So, for the first half, didn't even know we had one. And then finally, Jim goes, man, we should just take this thing out. I'm like, okay. So we took it out, plugged everything in. Everything worked like it was supposed to. We redid the trims. We redid the throws. Slapped the wing back on. Jim fires the motor up. He hasn't started the plane in 2 years. The thing just starts, kicks off, is running great. He goes to kind of advance the throttle so he can start, checking the RPMs and stuff. And throttle's not working. We forgot
and
to
it started, right?
Oh, yeah, it started right up. So it's
the
just
throttle servo didn't get hooked back up.
Not correctly, yeah. So so it's just running. Luckily, he had a kill switch in it, and he was able to kill it, and we were able to go in there and redo everything. So the last time we checked everything before we put the wing back on, hey, 9th time's the charm. We finally got the clue. We put it back on, and everything worked okay, and it was successful. So we went and flew the plane, and I have to say I was really impressed with that Dolphin, and I think he had a Sato 46, I think, on that particular plane. Sounded great, ran great. By that time, the wind had kind of kicked up, and it was kind of blustery, but that plane didn't even have a problem, flying through that. So Jim flew it around for a bit, handed it off to me. I kind of retrimmed everything, got it flying a little nicer. Once again, the difference between glow and electric, that's always an interesting dynamic. I love the fact that you sitting there flying. I'm like, oh, I should land soon, and I'm just like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, hey, when should I land? Do you have a timer on your radio or whatever? He's like, dude, when your neck gets tired or your arms start getting numb, I'm just like, oh, okay. How long have I been? It was just one of those things that, once again, the difference between electric and glow or gas, I was just like, wow.
I love this part of the story because I've actually heard it. When Jay got done with the field, he called me and he was telling me about it. And he's like, dude, I was up flying and it was like how long have I been up here? And he's like, I got to get down, So he like tells Jim, or he tells me, that I look over at Jim and I go, man, I got to I'm going to land. And Jim's like, why? You got 16 minutes to fly it, and you've only been up for like 8, But I totally get what he says, because it's funny with me. I think 2 podcasts ago we were talking about me flying that the big, gasser,
right?
And I had actually flown the L-39, and it was, it's a 3.5 minute flight, and you get done flying it, and then you jump on the sticks for this thing, and 3.5 minutes goes by, and your body clock kind of says, okay, you've gone through the 3.5 minutes. And then I go, well, how much longer do I have? And he looks at the timer and goes, oh, you got 12 more minutes, knock yourself out. And you're just kind of like, oh, wow. There is
Or I'll tell you after I come back from the bathroom and getting a sandwich, or something like that. It's like, wow.
Now, what I will tell you is that it does have, our electrics do have that capability, because I was over at Peters not too long ago, and he has a new Twin Dream. Remember the airplane that he rolled and crashed on the first flight? He got a lockout.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, he's a big FPV guy, and so he's got this Twin Dream, and it's all new. And he was saying that he's got a 10 or 12,000 milliamp battery in there.
Wow.
A 12,000 milliamp, and he can fly for, I think he said 73 minutes.
Right.
Wow.
Is it a LiPo or a?
It is a LiPo.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's not a Life battery. It's a
Life.
LiPo. But this is the coolest thing that I've ever seen. And FPV is just not my thing. I'm already a pilot, so it's kind of like me doing my job, and I want to go out and have fun. I don't want to come and hobby and do my job kind of thing. So anyway, but he has the goggles, and then he actually put an Arduino board in there in his, and they are now selling this little mount. So if he took his goggles, and as he rotates the goggles, then the front camera rotates.
That's cool.
And it'll rotate almost 360 degrees.
Right.
That's
now
pretty
it's
cool.
only 180 this way and 180 that way, so it's not a full twisting around 360, but it'll rotate just about 160 that way and 160 that way.
Right.
And there's not really a reason to look totally behind you, because the way it sits, you wouldn't be able to see anything but the inside of the airplane.
And that's because they put like a accelerometer in the goggles itself.
Correct. And so
that's cool.
So the other thing that he can do now is the way the servo, and this was something that he wanted help working on, and we had talked about it, how to bend the arm, because it was binding, but it would look up and down as well. So it would look straight, but then he could glance up, and then it would move up at like 30 degrees. But it was binding.
That's pretty cool.
He was trying to figure out how to get that out. But it had airspeed and altitude and GPS, and he had a whole heads-up display. And I started laughing because he was telling me all the stuff in the heads-up display, and I go, "Yeah, my airplane that I fly for real has a heads-up display," and I already have all that in mind. So what you're trying to explain to me what to watch, I do that for a living, so I already know. But he's like, "Oh, it does?" And I go, "Yeah." I said, as a matter of fact, it has a lot of the same look to it for what you have. But I haven't seen him. I didn't get to go last Tuesday, and this coming up Tuesday, I'm not going to be able to go either. But I need to get back out to the field and see if he's actually made it yet, because he was working on it and had just figured everything out. And it'll be interesting to see how, what he feels like looking through that stuff. So yeah, that was my point. Kind of a long-winded story, but yeah, the point is that with a 12,000 milliamp battery and the motors that he has with the bigger props, yeah, he can fly for almost an hour and a half, which is amazing at a third throttle or whatever. So it's really cool, actually, that the technology's coming that far.
Yeah, those things are pretty amazing what they're able to do, and like you said, adding Arduino boards to it on top of what it's capable to do. It's pretty amazing.
Well, battery technology is coming a long way anyway. Just in the real aircraft side, I was looking at an article yesterday, and they were talking about electric flight, how far it's come, and they're about to set a world speed record for electric flight up into the 300-mile-an-hour range.
Nice.
Which is
Our friend Tom sent us a video about electric flight aviation, and I watched the majority of that, and it was pretty good, just to see what they're doing and some of the cool designs. I like that they're taking this opportunity to change wing designs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wings have been wings for the longest time, but they've only relied on jet engine propulsion, and now that you have electric propulsion, things change. Like, for example, they talked about how you have wingtip motors that run the majority of the time, and that the other motors, they have a bunch of smaller little ones that run when you're at slower speed, so you get the airflow you need over the wing. It's like, wow, that's just so cool, that whole idea.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked at that article with the wing, how they changed the wing design, because the wing is what really produces lift.
Right.
And he figured out, and of course NASA's doing the research, which give it to those guys. They took an existing airplane, they took all the stuff that they didn't have to redesign, and the new battery technology that's out there, and they said, okay, well, how do we make this kilojoule or whatever last longer? And they're like, oh, well, we can actually enhance the lift capability of the wing by making it smaller, which is one of those weird things that, we think of lift being developed because it's a bigger wing, but you have to go faster with a bigger wing to create that lift. And they narrowed the wing so that you didn't have as much drag. And they took the wingtip motors to get rid of the wingtip drag. So it was very interesting. I did the same thing. I was glued to that thing because I was just like, it's part of my history, and I'm just like, oh, yeah, that's cool. But the cool thing about it was how much innovation for the real aircraft has come from model aircraft.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they were saying that the wing designs, a lot of the the stuff that happens on the aircraft model side, battery development, engine. Electrical engine, when the electrics hit the market, it just exploded. And now you can actually take that same efficiency. You were just talking about the motor that your wing has and how efficient it is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Fly it. And then just imagine upsizing that to something in a 1 or 200 range, right? Or a 3/4 horsepower or a 5 horsepower motor that has that same efficiency. And now they're talking about, some of these airplanes. I think there's a Czechoslovakia or the Czech Republic has a company called Pipistrel, and they're selling airplanes now that can fly an hour and a half on a battery charge.
Which is pretty cool for if you think about it, right? Because right now, if I was a student pilot, right? Because I'm not thinking about taking that thing and trying to go fly cross country with it, but if I'm just learning how to fly, and most pilots, beginner pilots, where are you for that 0.5? You're right around the airport, right? Mm-hmm. So that's perfect for a beginner pilot to use, because now think about the cost, right? So you got a plane, you're paying for the pilot, for your instructor, and then you're paying for it for fuel, oil, and everything else. Well, you don't have to worry about oil. You're just paying for a couple of electrons, and so now you're just only paying for the pilot and maintenance. So
the maintenance is a lot less on electric.
Right, a lot less, right? Because how are the annuals going to work on that stuff, right? That's going to be very interesting to figure that out, how they're going to do that. So, but they were talking about the cost.
Just going to unwind it and then wind it back up again.
Yeah. So the cost to entry is going to be a heck of a lot lower.
You would hope.
I would hope it would work that way, but it should.
There's a lot of margin in there, right? Because you're now. The airplane didn't seem to get any cheaper. It wasn't like, with this new motor, it's, 70%.
No. But I'm just talking about just that overall, like I said, it's still going to cost you, $500,000 for the thing.
Right.
Because once again, with the litigation stuff, there's still going to be, the plane only may cost $25,000, but it's going to cost $500,000 because of all the,
Right.
It's the thing
well, these are light sports, and so they're in a little bit different category.
Oh, that's right. That's right. They're in that little nebula.
But here's the interesting thing that I didn't think about as a pilot, as a real pilot. I didn't think about this, but watching this thing that Mike is talking about, they brought up the fact that when you fill the aircraft full of avgas, right, or jet fuel,
Mm-hmm.
and then you take it from point A to point B, you get a certain amount of energy from burning, the fuel.
Of course you do.
So as you burn the fuel, the aircraft gets lighter, right? And then you get more efficient as you go, which is why longer haul flights are way more efficient than short haul flights. If an electric airplane doesn't do that,
Right. What it weighs is what it weighs,
energy,
other than what you
what
put in
it weighs
it.
taken off weighs when it lands. There's
Right.
no difference. The battery doesn't get lighter as it burns energy. And that was the first time I had actually, the light bulb kind of came on, that was like, oh, you're right. For a vehicle, like a car, a Tesla or whatever, electric vehicle, you don't have that problem because you just go from point to point. But for an aircraft, you do, right? You've trained, like we've looked at all this stuff and all of these things that Boeing and, NASA and on all these aircraft companies, Airbus, whoever, they always look at it as, okay, what am I going to take off at and what am I going to land at? And there's a cost for that, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just think about it. You told me a quote the other day.
There won't.
You told me a quote the other day, like, the equivalent in how many pools full of fuel you carry on your aircraft.
Yeah.
Flying from here to Seoul or whatever,
Right.
And once again, now you're not, if you were able to make that aircraft electric powered, now that's almost half the weight of the plane that wouldn't be needed for fuel, right? It could be, I don't know how many more people get stuff in there, but I'm just saying, whether it's cargo fuel or whatever, but if you designed your plane to be even more efficient flying, right? Now, you know that the weight's only going to change by, X amount of pounds, right? Because of people, cargo or whatever, but it's a slim, margin. Then you can design the plane even more efficiently to fly on this weight. That
I will tell you that for my particular case, my aircraft, the way that my aircraft takes off at a heavy weight would be very strange getting to your destination and landing at the same weight, because the speeds that to keep you in the air for that much weight are a lot higher than when you get to your place and you weigh hardly anything. You can slow way down, where if you carried that weight the whole way and never got rid of it, now when you get down there, you're like, oh my gosh, I still weigh the same. And now I've got to bump up all my speeds, and what kind of wear and tear on the tires does that increase, and the brakes and all that other good stuff. So very interesting. I mean, kind of off the topic, but and it's just a crazy world that we're lucky that the technology in the RC world is able to be vaulted into real world, type applications. So it's really kind of cool.
Gotcha. Well, you guys, what do you? Hopefully, you're going to get out and do some flying next week or two. So, you guys got any ideas about stuff coming up, or are you working on a project or two, or what?
Actually, I've got some family obligations. I think I got birthdays and stuff coming up sometime soon. So, I've got to celebrate my century and 5. This month
Mike,
is my double nickel.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, is this your 5th anniversary or 50th birthday?
Yeah, that's it. That's I like that. I like double nickels too. That's what my
double nickels. That's good.
My brother-in-law said, because when he turned 55, we went up there and celebrated double nickels with him, and so he's all excited. We're going up to see him again, and he's like, "Well, you came up for my birthday, and now you're coming up for your birthday." So. But yeah, so we have some family travel that we're doing. Hopefully, actually, I was looking at some of my RC stuff today, and I missed the chance to go fly with Barry and the guys. But he said next time they go out, I'll probably run out there and take a turn on the Turbine L39.
So this has been a podcast of off topic. So I'm gonna take a few minutes off topic here myself. It's only off topic in the sense that it's talking about my paramotor, which I like to talk about.
Well, it's still flying, sort of.
But what happened is I got a chance to change the carburetor, the gaskets and stuff in the carburetor. And my buddy who helped me out, Chris, he said, "Yeah, come on over. We'll work on your carburetor." So I just thought I was going to change out the gaskets and whatever. And he goes, "No, dude, we got to take this off. Take it off." what are you gonna take it off for? Well, you need to cook the carburetor. Cook the carburetor? What are you talking about? And then he grabs it from me and he goes, let me have that. And I said, all right. Fills up the pan with water. He's like using his wife's good pans and stuff. and he pours a little Dawn in there and he starts boiling. I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm cleaning it, man. It's like, this is what you got to do. I was like, okay,
we need to get
whatever.
You an ultrasonic cleaner, my friend.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. But anyway, the only reason why I brought it up was because I know this is probably true. It's got to be true for those little engines as well. And so I felt like it has some tie-in. And so what was amazing about this was we've been talking about how hard my motor's been to start.
Mm-hmm.
When I put that new carburetor, not new, when I put that cleaned carburetor on my,
it's been boiled.
Dude, it just lit right up. I mean, it was like, and I was like, oh my Lord. What? Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to fly it because it was too windy for me to go up, but I'm jonesing to go flying now because that thing is solid. And
a nice potpourri smell, of course.
Smells like Dawn.
And got this nice cotton linen flowery smell.
But I was just amazed, and when I was like, what are we actually cleaning? He goes, well, see that little hole right there? And these holes they're any bigger than pinholes.
There's Venturas all throughout the carburetor.
Yeah, well, I don't know much about a carburetor per se, other than I know you got to clean them. But yeah, I mean, and there was dirt in the pan too, and all that stuff obviously came out. I just thought it was an interesting
what a
thing.
grain of sand will do to your carburetor.
Right. I mean, that's
smaller. I mean, I've got that big DA 120. I was having all kinds of fits with that thing, and it just was not running right. We tuned it and detuned it, and it just was chugging along. And I just was frustrated. And I was at the field one day, and I told one of the guys, and I said, hey, I just don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to either get a new one or do it. He goes, oh, did you change your carburetor screen? And I go, what? He goes, take your carburetor off and clean it out and pull the screen out, because there's a little hole underneath, and it actually has a lip, and you pull the screen and the screen comes out. And it looked like somebody had just smeared a bunch of crud on there, and I cleaned it all out.
I live in Arizona, the sandiest place on the planet.
The goo. Yeah.
Sucking that up in there. But yeah, just a little bit of, a few grains of sand causes some serious problems. And like Jay said, I threw mine in the ultrasonic cleaner, and that thing cranked up like it hadn't breathed in years, like took a deep breath and said, let's go fly. So it is amazing.
So for our listeners, what do you guys do? Do you guys use anything like an high tech, like an ultrasonic cleaner, or do you just whip out a toothbrush, or, what do you do? So, drop by, give us a phone call.
833 or no,
830-444-4943.
That's
and
it.
Let us know what you do, or jump on our Park Flyer Podcast listeners group on Facebook, or send us an email at parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.
Or you can comment on YouTube. That works too, right?
We actually got a couple of comments on YouTube. We're always happy to do that. I had a couple more people jump on the Facebook listeners group. I had to approve them this week, so
good.
It's always good. Yep. We're trying out a new thing. We've got different video system now, and trying some audio video recording changes. So we'll see how all that works.
Yeah. But, be sure to comment. Let us know.
Yeah. We always love your comments.
Yeah.
So, and for those of you that somehow got my text numbers, we appreciate those too.
You've been texting you, Mike?
No, I'm teasing Scott. He's got my text. I enjoy his texts. So Scott's one of our listeners there near Jay, and we give him a shout out because he's able to. He's actually got excited about this podcast, and we love to hear from him, and love to give him a shout out. But he's responsible for the wing that he got, Jay. So.
Which unfortunately hit a tree, and Scott was flying.
Oh,
yeah. And so this was actually the topic for today, But somehow we never got there. I mean, Jay was like, okay, we're going to talk about how this, the wing and what happened. And now we never even made it down that. I mean, here we are, hours up.
Yeah. Well, the good news is
good news.
the overall for let all listeners know, unfortunately, when Scott was flying, he got a lockout. He picked a tree and he hit the tree. So he's got skills. And
I just have one question.
What's that?
I have one question.
What's
Is
that?
insurance going to pay for it?
No. Insurance is not. Get off my land, revenuers.
Oh, I want my $2.
I want my $2. So Scott felt really bad about it, and I'm like, dude, it'll take me half an hour. I can fix this, no problem. He's like, oh no, I'll get you a new plane. I'm like, don't worry about it. But anyway, he went ahead and ordered me a new plane, and when the new plane came in, I got new swag.
Hey, look at that! Got the top
Nice.
wing. Oh, now look at that! Now I'm.
That's pretty
jealous.
cool.
Got some
Yeah.
swag.
So it's when you get to be that
This
tier.
is where you can put your swag right here.
I have the Park Fire Podcast swag. Jay has the Tough Wings swag. Mike.
And mine's a blank canvas.
That's
For
right.
anybody who
For
wants
our
to-
new sponsors to be
Yes,
put
yes,
right
you
there,
want to become
you
a
could be
sponsor.
right there on podcast. I mean,
That's too funny. Well, we're going to have to let you guys go for this week, but we sure have enjoyed spending some time with you, and it's always fun to hear, some of the antics that we go, even if it kind of off topic. It's always fun to kind of hear what happens. So I'll keep perusing the boards and see what we got. If you have a topic for us, once again, our phone number is 830-444-4943. And or send us an email, parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com. Comment on our YouTube, subscribe for us, and we appreciate it. Incredibly appreciative of your listening. And
of course. Oh, and don't forget the like button.
don't forget to hit the like button and share. We're going to try to start doing that stuff. Give us the thumbs up on YouTube and share us, because we can kind of get bigger and better and expand our horizons. So, but for this week, I think we're out, right? I'm Michael from Arizona.
And I'm Jay from the hills of Texas.
And I'm AK Mikey, Texas.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Let's fly.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.